Absolutely. Testing, testing.
Hello. I'm not doing. Okay. Maybe.
It looks like Lisa, your computer is unmuted.
Let's see.
So now we should have, so we're still getting feedback.
Okay. Wait, try unmuting it again. I think I figured it out. It was the room.
Yeah.
It was the room speaker.
Thank you.
Not working.
It seems like it's not giving us the feedback anymore. We should ask a participant if they can confirm that they can hear us.
Should be. Okay, so let's continue. I'm sorry to have interrupted your flow. Sorry to those.
Yeah, sorry.
Online. We discovered that there's no audio.
I'll need to double check that.
I don't know.
Someone will hear us.
Okay, well, I'll,
The room check.
yeah, I'll start with, all things transportation, doing to prepare for the festival. So, we're here this afternoon to talk about parking rates in the downtown garages, but that's one piece of this sort of larger comprehensive plan that we're developing to bring Sundance to our community in January. So that covers everything from how we manage traffic at a citywide level. So ensuring that people are getting into town safely and efficiently and in all modes of transportation. So as you notice, transit, we're working with RTD and we're working with the state to look at increasing transit service, both regional and local transit service into and through Boulder. Because we really want this to be a festival where folks have options. If they're driving, let's hope that they park once and then they've got really great options to get around town, whether that's the hop that's going to be running every several minutes, or our micromobility. So using a weather dependent, using a line scooter or a B-cycle, or just conveniently walking to their venues and ensuring that we have snow and ice, winter mobility operations in place to ensure that we're providing safe access to folks to get between the venues and between all the activation centers. So, and ride shares and TNC management. So we expect that folks will be taking Ubers and Lyfts and other means of transportation to the venue. So we're working closely with our counterparts at the Sundance Film Festival Institute to look at what those access and circulation plans are around each of the venues, with the downtown area being of particular importance because we really think that's going to be the shining star, if you will, of the festival. So that sort of wraps it all up very comprehensively. I think in 2 minutes, I've described a lot of aspects of the work that we're doing. But again, the key being giving people options to get to the festival. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Sam, who's going to address parking for those folks who will be driving to.
Thanks, Jean. So you might be wondering, why are we considering making changes during the festival? And we recognize the need to preserve access for the folks who might just be coming downtown to go out to dinner or to go shopping and they're completely unrelated to the festival. But we also recognize that this festival is going to drive a significant amount of visitation to downtown. And that might mean a significant amount of vehicles coming on parking. And so we're looking at strategies. We looked at strategies to manage the visitor experience, to make sure that we're not only able to recover the cost of increasing our service levels during the time that Sundance is here, so that we have a really seamless and good and positive customer experience for people, but also to manage the parking demand that the festival is going to generate. And so that's why we're looking at potentially some changes based on feedback received from commissioners tonight. And so in your packet, this table was available and it's here on screen for you. It might look a little bit intimidating, but I'll break it down. On the left side, that is our current rate structure. This is like Monday through Sunday. This is what we have in place for 2026. And then on the right side of the screen, this is what we are proposing for the festival weekends. Now, we're only looking at making changes during festival weekends when we anticipate the most amount of visitation and traffic generation is going to take place. And those are Thursday through Sunday, the very first weekend of the festival, and then Friday through Sunday, the second weekend of the festival. And during those 2 weekends, we're proposing making a very, very simple rate structure that's very easy for folks to understand. And what that looks like is if you're coming downtown for 2 hours or less and you're parking in the garage, your parking session is free. That should cover folks who are just coming to, maybe lunch at a restaurant, go shopping. They're not coming for festival related needs. But if you're staying for longer than 2 hours, then it's got a flat rate. It's $20 for the day. And that should cover the folks who are staying for the festival, who are most likely going to be staying for 4 hours or longer, because most of those film events are around 4 hours typically. That's what we're anticipating. So we're hoping that this rate structure will help kind of thread the needle between folks who are just coming downtown because that's the operation, and those folks who are coming to the festival. Now, to come up with a $20 rate, we did look at a number of peer cities who host really large festival events. $20 is pretty significantly lower than what most of them charge. If you go down to downtown Denver, pretty much any day of the week, you expect to pay this. We didn't want it to be like an astronomically high number because we don't normally charge for parking on the weekends, and so it's going to be an experience. We're really gonna, see how this goes the first year and then adjust after that. But that's really how we came up with this pricing structure. And you might be wondering, what about permit holders? Well, we've definitely been thinking about that too. Not only permit holders, but downtown workers who are really accustomed to parking for free on the weekends. And so what we're proposing is those permit The downtown, Cajun permits that we offer in the garages, they're Monday through Friday permits, and that's effectively because on Saturday and Sunday, most of the time we don't charge, and so your permit doesn't really matter, you can park in any of the Cajun garages. And so what we're proposing is during the festival, your permit will still be valid Monday through Friday, you can still park Monday through Friday without permit. On Saturday and Sunday, when normally we have free parking, we are investigating whether we can use, another garage that could be available to us, which is up at Alpine Balsam. It's the garage that is located at the Western City, future Western City campus, to offer free parking for those downtown workers who need access on the weekends, during the festival days. It's right located literally right next to the Skip, which is a bus that goes up and down Broadway, should take them very efficiently downtown. It's probably about 15-minute walk, so it's very close and it preserves that access, for those folks who still need, to work downtown during the festival. So that is what we're investigating. Sure, we have options for all of the different folks.
Do the bus rates change during COVID? Okay.
Did you say the bus rates? So, the hop will be operating their freight. And we are in conversations with RTD to determine if it may be feasible to also buy up fares, ride fare free service on our skip jump, bound, dash. And perhaps beyond, because we want to ensure that we have really efficient on and offs for folks, like when we've got hundreds of people exiting a theater, get them on a bus and get them off a bus. But that's still in conversation, so that we can confidently say that hop will.
It's the concern that the people who work downtown will just use up too many of the spaces if they're able to park there. Be the same or nothing like they had been before. So I'm wondering why they couldn't just have a park. Is that just too many parking spaces?
You mean during the
On the
weekends?
weeks,
Yeah.
yes, so they wanna sell it. Or if they wanna sell the spot. Well, I know, but I mean, there is a balance between having people in the shops to sell stuff and.
Yeah, that's my question, like, it's gonna cost me $80 for Sundance to park.
Yeah, well,
Like, have you guys considered any kind of, for, like, employees? Maybe that we don't have to pay the $20?
well, that's why we're investigating the use of the Alpine Broadway garage for free parking. There's also, if you live within the RTD network, you can park at any parking ride in the RTD system for free for 1 day, and then to use your Eco Pass, which is a program that Patriot offers our downtown employees, to then take the bus the rest of the way. And that actually might be the more convenient way during the festival, just because we do anticipate increased traffic on roadways. And we're looking at ways to make the bus transit more efficient, increasing service levels. And so there's gonna be a couple of different options that are available to downtown employees. But we do expect that there's gonna be extremely high demand for the downtown garages. Not only that, but, there's gonna be additional parking that's taken offline by the festival. And so again, that just puts more pressure on the existing resources. What we're trying to do is thread the needle of, managing all these different parties who all need access to these same resources and trying to find a way to make it as seamless as possible for all of them. But really this first year, we're just planning to learn a whole lot. Because it's frankly a new experience for Boulder and a new experience for Sundance. And, there's a lot that we won't know until we experience it, and we're doing our best to prepare ahead of time. And then we'll adjust and learn from it.
So will the downtown workers be able to ride the bus free? I'm not sure I caught that part.
So, Cajun has a program, that they offer for, Eco Passes. Eco Passes are universal bus pass that work on all of the RTD network. And so the thought is that will still be available during the festival weekend if the buses aren't already fare free, which we're looking to see, how much of the system we're able to do that for. That's our hopes and dreams. Whether that's feasible or not, we're still figuring out, but, so that would be an option. It's either any of the RTD park and rides, which you come all the way up to like Table Mesa and 36, which has a massive garage. There's park and rides all down the 36 corridors. And even during the festival, we're investigating use of lots like, and hopefully it's okay if I share this information, like the IBM lot that's along the diagonal highway, just more options to get people to like park before they come into Boulder and then take transit the rest of the way to make it just super easy and get people out of vehicles, make it nice. Don't have to worry about trying to find it.
Literally where it's for the lowest paid workers downtown. They can make sure they are, get the run of the festival deal.
I mean, I just wanted clarification, the alternative free option is not just for permit holders, it's for everyone as well.
We're still investigating it, so it's
At
not,
least for that, also.
yeah, it's being
But then
explored.
possibly
Possibly for all of them, but I mean, we really wanna like contain it to downtown workers, cause what we don't want is festival goers parking there. We wanna preserve it for, you know, our population that needs to be working in person during the festival, cause I imagine there's gonna be kind of demand for downtown workers at the same time that there's heightened demand on all of these recreation resources.
What are the questions on Boston that you haven't solved for, like that, Kansas City? That's gonna be.
It's just, getting permission through all of
It's
those,
under construction.
yeah, but
So,
there's that, it's making sure that it's gonna be
yeah.
finished. And then
I
making
do
sure we
like,
have safe.
I appreciate looking out for our local workers.
Yeah, and alternatively, if for whatever reason, I'm also isn't available. They can rise, for instance, to be the office is. But on the weekend, since it's not necessarily, so. Nature measures. One of the garages have been planned. As the permit holder, down to the play garage, while the other garages are. Gentlemen. Right now, we're certainly parking.
Those who do the fastest for cities, it's not like just flip a switch, you gotta do stuff and the person has to go, so it's. Plan ahead.
It's easier now, you just have to, you just want to get put on the list, it's not the whole process.
Okay.
It used to be.
I think you still have to go and
No, if you have the ask, you just get your employees, just add it to that.
What about, have you considered any kind of like the Chautauqua or shuttle, like, I mean, I feel like first choice, if you have money, if you have $20, $27, first choice is to park. So I wouldn't worry about any of your spots not going, like, you know, I'm just curious if you've looked into anything, like, I don't think it's a bad idea to offer people to park somewhere and then have a free shuttle that takes people to Sundance.
And that's exactly what we're hoping to narrative people to do, because the park and rides are the park and rides is exactly the model that you talked about, where you can exit off of 36 as you're coming into Boulder. If you're in Westminster, you know, if you're in Louisville, there are these enormous park and rides with hundreds of parking spaces. And we're looking at even like adding variable messaging signs, like 36 to let people know, like, get off here and grab the RTD. And you know, we're having these conversations with all of our regional partners to try and make it like as convenient as humanly possible for folks to take transit, because that is definitely a priority. But we also need to plan for the realistic expectation that people will also.
And then people who have a permit on Thursday and Friday, on both Fridays, they won't be able to park there on Thursday.
They can still park from Monday through Friday at a time. It's just Saturday and Sunday. That we're just clarifying that their permit is gonna be valid Monday through Friday.
Oh, you know, our data, we're able to see how many permit users are currently using drives on weekends, and it's pretty.
Yeah.
So the thinking is if we were to say, hey, your permit is available these weekends, then they're not actually coming downtown to go to work, they're using their permit for first day.
And sell it to them. I think it's a life.
I would just also offer that as we're nailing down the details of the parking rates and the locations and other parking options for employees and visitors, we're gonna be communicating this information out very aggressively so that all of your downtown employees and your staff really understand what their options are and helping you as business owners also to understand that. So to your point about the bids and the signs, like that's gonna be, those are for the folks who are like on the spot trying to figure out, like, do I stay in my car and risk it? Or do I have a reliable ride if I, park at the Westminster or McCaslin Park and Ride and get on the bus with them to, so. With my eco pass or maybe no pass.
As long as you can, like, as someone who's tried real, I live in Broomfield, I've tried so hard to take class here, it's basically not possible. And it will be January, so just, yeah. But it could be, I think, a really good opportunity to get people eco passes and get people on the bus. To remind people, like, you didn't get killed or mugged or disgusting, like, I love the bus. Just miss. We just can't be just, I don't know, 2 hours to get.
And we're hoping that it's a little bit more efficient too.
Yeah.
But that's like, I think I'm really excited for our efficiency plan because our messaging is gonna be super fun. Like, you never know who you're gonna meet on. the
Right.
bus.
Or it's like people that are trying to get out of here, it's like, you can take the bus there for free with this eco pass, so. You're dodging this bullet here. It's like, great, we'll help you get out. Go.
I have two questions, I guess. The street parking would kind of remain what it is with certain pricing, things like that, but would that still be free after a certain time period?
So that's a great question. We are also looking to make some adjustments to on-street parking. The pricing, we're not going to be adjusting, but what we are looking at adjusting is making the time limits completely streamlined across the system. Right now, some blocks are 2 hours, some blocks 3 hours, so it's gonna be consistently 2 hours across the entire paid parking off-street system. And then we're also looking at extending some times of day and days of week so that we can accommodate for the increased visitation at hours. We don't normally see that kind of visitation during the festival. So essentially going, having paid parking later in the evening, having paid parking on Sundays, and just making sure that we're covering that so that the long-term option is in the garages and the on-street parking remains 2 hours for those people who are doing the program. We want the on-street parking to turn over. We don't want people, parked in front of one business all day long and thinking of that valuable space for a customer who just wants to run in and that's, right? So that's definitely part of our strategy to ensure we preserve short-term access. And the garages are that longer term option for that person who's coming downtown. They're gonna go see a Sundance film, they're hopefully gonna go out to eat afterwards, maybe they'll do some shopping on the mall, and they're parked there all day, so.
Well, the main reason I ask about the free hours on street parking is we don't have many late night spots. Manage one of them, and a lot of my employees are not able to take the bus home from work because bus services don't go. After we close our doors and clean up and get out of there, we're sometimes 3:30, 4 o'clock, especially with this added traffic that we're expecting on weekends. So, if bus services aren't extended to the longer operating times, will there be options? I look at like the $3 flat rate. I know that's something that a lot of my employees will use in garages. Is there a way to kind of keep that for an adjustment period if you start after 9 p.m. say? I imagine with most of the films being shown, there might be a few late
Yes.
Late
And we are
films,
looking
but-
at extending the transit service hours as well, but you mentioned 3:34. I believe we were looking at 2:30 a.m. But what I'm hearing is that might not be.
Not every late night spot operates the same way,
Yeah,
but I
okay.
know like us and the spot at James and, certain employees for like the pub, if we close at 2, we're not leaving at 2:30.
Right.
We leave, like the 3 AM flat rate is like helpful because we can kind of get people out of there in time to not get charged the overages at the parking garage. So I know that's a small subset of the workers in downtown, but it's definitely something where if they're parked in the Alpine Balsam parking garage, they might not be able to get back to their car without walking. That's
Moving this to another question. Was there any public comment on this staff matter?
So I guess what we're being presented with today is to adopt this as is, and my concerns about it. We believe, I don't know, that we might be working more on these or
Yeah, because I can see that we have concerns about if Alpine Balsam doesn't work,
right.
what happens? Gals.
So I don't know that we want to adopt it if this isn't set in stone. That's-
Yeah, so, just kind of formally, what we're being asked to do, under your kind of duties and however it is to, consider the adjustments specifically. That recommendation to city council becomes final if they do not follow up or call it to action, to move to action. Whether you approve or deny that, that's for their follow-up consideration, following up, the council will have a formal hearing, on that, and make a decision on the fee itself. So you have a couple options. You could not make a recommendation at this time, I would have to yield to the team on, timing and what they're hoping to do, just to get all of the implementation logistics in place for the festival. You could, make a motion one way or another, and as a part of your motion, you could have recommendations or conditions that, so a couple of different ways that go.
So maybe just a petition to commissioners. We could say. We move to adopt this with the conditions that we do have. Ability for late night. Workers and workers in general to partner. In a similar manner to now, maybe at Alpine Balsam or similarly close kind of. Does that seem to encapsulate what we're saying?
It's late at night after.
Yeah, that's- Do I have to put that into written words that are more firm, or is that concept?
Yeah, I think some language, similar to that would be fine from our perspective around here from the teams. We'll look into it, maybe work with our team, maybe there's if the transit ends at a certain time. We'll take the feedback to try to find some solution, but I would have to go to the board in terms of whether or not.
Let's do just a quick halfway raise hand, see if that's okay, or if anyone else wants something different from that kind of concept. Are we in agreement on those general concepts?
Yeah, as long as there are accommodations. for People to. Safely.
Work, and so maybe what if is like, what if Alpine Balsam's gone, right, we take over. The police department, right, or because this is the city lots, like the city. Doesn't own the RTD lot above the bus station, right?
The Cajun owns the RTD garage, Cajun owns the airspace above. The bus
So
station.
they own the first floor and we own the top.
That's right,
Yeah,
yeah.
parking, so we can't really consider that as our fault, I'm just trying to.
Well,
think
that
about-
garage can be an option that we investigate for downtown workers. So if the language is, we motion to adopt these changes and we encourage staff to ensure there are options for X, Y, and Z. That would cover us. That
Maybe
would
one
cover
part
us.
we didn't talk about, is this the $20? Is that raised for the, because we've gotten to like the ifs and buts, let's go to the main meat of the concept, are we all good with the 20? And the other parts?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, does anyone, so.
Should I try it out?
What?
Should I try it out?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll, motion to adopt the user fee adjustments to Cajun owned parking facilities. Per procedures set forth in the BRC 235 based off staff recommendation. With the consideration for further research into, accommodating late night workers and. Extension of late night hours for either transportation or.
And of just similar free parking for. Symbols, like that. So two things, kind, one. Do I hear a second on this? I think we should probably vote on this.
Yeah.
Ayes? Nays? None?
Mr. Hoffman, would you mind repeating that so that?
Sure.
Put it up on the screen to confirm.
Yep.
Okay.
Motion to adopt the user fee adjustments to Cajun owned parking facilities per procedures set forth in BRC 235 based on the staff recommendations. With, further consideration for late night workers.
Thank you very
Um. And possible extension. Of transportation. Or free parking hours. Is it extension or maybe just like adjustment to the hours when those are.
I think I'll cover possible. The late night workers. And extension of transportation. And / for free parking. I don't want that possible with.
Does it include something about, like, I don't know how these stores and restaurants are gonna get. I mean, I'm lucky most of my employees can walk. I can't imagine why you're gonna tell everybody, oh, we all have to pay $20.
Well, that's what we're solving. That's what we're trying to do, this is maintain free parking for employees.
No, but it's a statement. There's some, we're not.
Maybe a comma after workers, comma, and extension, because that makes it too obvious. They're close.
Comparable parking options for downtown workers. Comparable to the van.
Okay, so with further consideration for late night workers.
System Pro,
comparable-
you voted on this language, so you will get the one.
Okay.
Yes.
Want to re-motion?
Back to discussion.
For late night workers comparable.
I'd get rid of the extension of trans, because that's the late night workers. After comparable, remove and extension of transportation and or. Just put comparable free parking hours. Because, does that work for you, Cal?
And or comparable free parking hours. That way,
I don't think there's an and or. Those are two different blocks.
Two
and we
different
need to vote.
okay,
Further consideration for late night workers. And, comma, and, comparable free parking. For employees. Downtown.
okay. So can I re-motion
You just re-motion that?
to adopt the user fee adjustments to Cajun owned parking facilities per procedure set forth. BRC 235 based on the staff recommendations with further consideration for late night workers. And comparable free parking hours for downtown.
Wait here a second. Ayes?
Aye.
Nays? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Second matter from staff, consideration of a motion to recommend authorization of the city manager acting with general manager Kate to execute a sale. Agreement and all associated documents. On properties located at 2121 Bellway. So actually move the board of directors for Kate. Folks, follow me. So. You just read like all 30 pages. How about?
I am gonna do this efficiently, and have to take the question for the public hearing on this one as well. So, you have seen some of the information that, has been out there until now, that we have reached a tentative agreement, to, potentially sell the KJ-owned surface parking lot at 2120 North Broadway or Broadway Spruce. So I'm gonna provide a little bit of an overview of our process behind that. I will point out kind of at the outset that real estate negotiations, for better or worse, are kept confidential, because if the city is out there saying, here's our position on certain things, or we'll essentially negotiate against ourselves, not in the public's interest in that way. And so over the past year plus 18 months, we've been working with the proposed buyers and also city council through executive session to get direction on parameters of the sale agreement. And so you are seeing the results of that finally come forward. And so your role this evening is to review that, and you will make a recommendation to city council, a bit less formal than the last one. But certainly important to get your opinion on the record before city council reviews this next month. I also recognize Ryan Diggins from Midnight Tour, who's over there, couch. And he has been a great partner in the negotiations and can speak directly to the project itself if you have questions. That is small. So I will cover a couple parts of this, but just to go quickly through some of the history here. You all are familiar with the lot, given that you all are downtown. It is a well-utilized lot. This was not on city's work plan in terms of putting out a request for proposals or something more formal. This was not something on our radar per se at this moment, when we received an unsolicited offer from MALR LLC in late 2024 to purchase the lot for the development of a boutique hotel. At that time, we engaged a bit to understand the opportunity, weigh that against kind of a more formal process, and ultimately consulted with city council as to whether or not to continue negotiations based on that initial offer. That led to us hammering out several different aspects of the agreement, including the sale price and several different community benefit provisions, which I'll get into in one moment. We received those parameters and that direction through executive session at city council in November of last year. And then before you is this kind of final draft agreement. So it is not formal until council authorizes us to execute the agreement. But we are trying to provide you all and community and council with as close to a final product as possible. And cover more the details. So I think it's helpful to step back and provide a little bit of perspective on why we engaged in this project in this way. I think timing is everything. Certainly, you all are familiar with the economic conditions in downtown, still trying to shake off the shadow, if you will, of COVID. We've been talking a lot about the economic situation downtown as relates to the Downtown Development Authority, which we'll get to our next item. We saw this as a valuable chance to attract new investment in downtown Boulder without us having to go through the extensive process. These were economic advantages that were factored into our decision to engage with the buyer, recognizing that we had someone coming to us that had an established track record, especially in Denver with the Rambo Hotel, and a commitment to work with us on key community benefit provisions, which we felt were important when we compare that to what we might have been able to get out of out of the process. That also speaks to the sale price, which we feel like, came out above, market, which is another consideration, in, going through a more closed, process. The other aspect of this, and I'll talk more about the parking, piece of this, is that a surface parking lot in your core downtown is not the highest and best use of space. Granted, it's convenient to have, that, parking, access in terms of a surface lot. But it is valuable real estate in your core downtown, so we thought that, trade-off was worth, pursuing. Yeah. And again, if you have questions on the proposal itself, Brian, I'm sure will be happy to answer questions. There are 110 hotel rooms that are proposed at this stage. For okay, so parameters of the agreement, if you haven't read the 30 pages of the document, boils down to a few provisions. One is the proposed purchase price at $5.8 million. We have been working with the city's broker on our end to confirm the competitiveness of that price. The community benefit covenant, so this means that there's a restriction that runs with the land itself to provide those community benefits, run for 30 years, and those benefits can be bought out after 5 years, and then the cost of those buyouts escalates annually. The reason why we did this is we had to find a way to have that restriction in place so that they're real, while also assigning some type of value to them, mostly for financing purposes for the project. So it is a balance of running a restriction with the project with the land itself, but also allowing for some type of reasonable off ramp so that the project can get financing move forward. So I think where we're at is feeling good about the tool and the partnership, recognizing that. And again, I could speak to this. They are committed to providing those community benefits, and that is why we're moving forward as covenant restrictions overall. So I'll get into the specifics here. There are 6 community benefit covenants that are significant in the proposed agreement, starting with affordable commercial space. 2,000 plus square foot leased at 25% below market to local independent retailers. There's also a provision in there to work directly with the city on marketing that space if it is needed, with extra help in that matchmaking for that affordable commercial space. We thought that was important. Just the way that commercial leases are in the downtown, and also to provide that kind of direct partnership with the city. We've had mixed success with mandated affordable commercial spaces, a little bit more successful downtown. Yeah, the city downtown, but in other parts of the city, at Boulder Junction, 29th Street, we've had a little bit more difficulty having restricted affordable commercial. So we're trying to be a little bit more proactive at the outset with this particular public space and events. Having clear, delineated public access to rooftop and other public spaces within the venue. Also making sure that there are areas that you can access without charge. We have some good examples of that in downtown that may not be as kind of visible and accessible, so I'll make sure that is one of the things that I'm really excited about in this, which is I think a little bit more cutting edge for where Boulder has been at, is confirming some provisions related to arts and culture. The company itself is really committed to local art, which we have appreciated. We have put some specific agreements within this proposed sale related to published arts, so $100,000 donation directly to our public art program to coordinate public art installation on site. Commitments for rotating local artist exhibits every year, and sourcing of local art that will be installed in the hotel itself at least 35%, and they've committed optimistically to beat that threshold. But I think that's a great commitment to our local or to culture scene. Diversity in environmental practices, hitting a 20% women and minority-owned business construction spend goal build out, and meeting our energy code by 10%. And then if parking is developed, that we're considering the historic parking lot users at First Congressional Church, but at a minimum to preserve alley access for during service. And then last but not least is just recognizing coming in to the downtown where we have a very strong tourism component that's more specific to some of our events. Heard about these people closely with this open as they come to the city. Good conversations. So those are the key community benefit provisions. And last, I will just talk a bit about parking, because that is certainly the trade-off. In exchange for the displacement of those 59 lots, we get this extra boost of economic activity. So what we wanted to do was study specifically, and this is included in your packets, what would it mean to our parking system by not just displacing the 59 spaces, but also accommodating the estimated impact of a hotel at that site. After that study, the study determined that, and we didn't look at our entire system, we looked at the three most relevant garages, the Spruce Garage, Randolph Center Garage, and the St. Julian Garage, that when you look at 95th percentile occupancy, so kind of at the high end of occupancy, we still have about 180 spaces left over when you account for the demand of the 59 spaces that we displaced, and for the average, the expected impact of the hotel. Overall, the system could accommodate about 479 rooms in additional hotels across the system without additional parking, without building additional parking. And again, this is proposed at 110. So we believe there is capacity within our system to absorb the impact here. We are also continuing conversations with the buyer on accommodating those hotel users in some type of way. So think of some of our more lightly utilized sites like Trinity Garage and coming up with some type of permanent service, valet service like we do in other cases with some of our larger downtown businesses. Those are ongoing conversations that we'll think about, just especially in consideration of the Spruce Garage, which tends to be one of our higher morale garages.
The hotel will have any parking lots.
That's correct.
I did see that the city could pay for adding a parking lot, you know, you're going to manage it, you should say that, et cetera, et cetera. That's not in the cards though, like, wow, changing the agreement, not gonna happen.
Yeah, it's a good question. So within the core downtown and with our parking minimum requirements, parking maximum requirements is the way we went as a city. Parking is no longer required in that case. So, and I don't want to speak for United Tour, that they have no intent to develop parking on the site because they are not required. It would be something that KJID most likely would have to entertain. We did not feel like that was needed based on the parking study. So, you know, certainly if the study came back and said you're on a deficit of 70 spaces or something like that, it's something that we would look into. It would be a consideration as to if that's a top priority for us to develop additional parking in the downtown, but certainly possible, similar to our condo arrangements like St. Julian, we could develop additional parking. It's just a matter of if we need to or whether we can sign it in a few years and because of that construction. That's what I do. So, yeah, and I would be, I think I can be more direct and say that if through the development review process, for instance, that there was a condition of approval that said we had to develop parking, I not sure that K2 would take that on.
So do they have any interest in securing some number of valet spots in the spruce lot?
I might yield to that.
Yeah, potentially. We just developed a hotel in Savannah. Actually, an old municipal building that we converted into a hotel. And yeah, we've got an arrangement with the parking garage next door. It works really well. So
Because that would impact the projections about availability of the spruce lot.
This study accommodated for that, I believe.
It did, and so it
It
imagines,
spreads it, I may have misread it, but I was reading that the anticipation is that it spreads that parking all the way over to the St. Julian Hotel and Walnut Hotel. I mean, parking lots.
yeah, the study assumes that some of the parking will be dispersed, it won't be 100%.
But not for the hotel. So it is assuming that some of the parking for the new hotel would disperse farther south.
Right, and so, I mentioned some of our other less utilized garages, so like the Trinity garage, for instance, which is only a block and a half away. We could work with them on an arrangement like that, how many spaces, what time of day, those are details that we have to work out, but I think, to your point, we would want to work with them on what is the right way to accommodate hotel users so that it is not, that the spruce garage is not bearing full brunt of that because you can't have
We see that in Denver all the time.
Yeah.
When we go down there and, who knows where they, it's back 15 minutes later.
Yeah.
So, it's not a huge burden, I'm just, the conversation is about the burden of parking there, but other places have, figured out how to do it, so it's not so catastrophic.
Right, yeah, I think that's a fair point, that we want to look at our whole system.
I'm also curious, like, I know like at the Ramble, they have the Duffing Co, like, is there a plan to do something similar, like a wall like that, or?
yeah, there'll definitely be a dining and drinking component of the project, event spaces, all that stuff.
Is there rooftop access to it?
Yeah, that's part of the plan. Yeah, we're hoping to have some rooftop amenity, and that's part of the access agreement, the general public too. Most people Uber to the F&B. And then hotel, typically, 25 to 30% of your overnight guests will typically drive a car to the hotel and need overnight accommodations.
Does this hotel fall within the agreements we have with Sundance for capping rates on, because they're coming in after that? Do they have to abide by the max?
Yeah,
the capping rates?
The city has not been a party to any of those conversations. There have been conversations between Visit Boulder and the hotels on setting aside a certain amount of capacity specifically for Sundance and then keeping rates within some sort of range that is reasonable. Those are the types of conversations that we've been made sure that Visit Boulder is facilitating with Midnight Tour, and they've been open to those conversations. We put language in the draft agreement that we feel like reflects that as far as the city would go in terms of the details of an arrangement that is, again, not directly to the city.
Does it say here what the annual revenue is from the 50 degrees stuff?
I don't have that. It might be in the study, but I think.
I think that was, this is like right on when you came back onto the VMC, but I know that was part of the discussion when they were first proposing. And believe the projection of the sale was pretty good compared to what we get revenue wise for the surface lot. Especially spread out over years. So
I think just the property taxes alone, I cover
right,
what happens.
yeah.
Well, presumably that revenue is captured as the people, the 59 people at a time who would be parking there, move into the other lots. Or the streets.
Yeah, does this include street parking too?
It does not.
Cause like seems like you can generally park on the street too. It's just nice because that lot usually has a spot, you circle it and can generally run one, but anything on the streets.
I know this is like glass half full, but I feel like if, which I appreciate the accommodations to. Rent the spaces at, lower rates. Than what, we're seeing in other commercial spaces, but. We can presume if people are filling the spaces that we're also capturing some of that sales tax in. From those
Yeah, but
businesses.
it's 2,000 square feet, that's, I mean, my store's 22, that's like.
No, she's talking for the hotel.
Yeah, oh,
Hotel rooms and businesses still, you know,
Yeah.
separately. So I know that was part of the analysis as well.
No, I'm just curious, like,
Considering what it would generate. for the
what
city.
happens if they don't do this? Like, the rooftop thing, like, I'm right by the Rio and Rosetta, their rooftops close like. More than it's open all winter, so like, I'm just curious, like, what happens if they're just like, we don't wanna stop the rooftop, then like. But it's too late, the sale's already done, like,
Yeah,
it's like just
enforceability,
good faith.
Well, there are issues around that too, because it's only 20 hours in a week, if I recall correctly, and that could be like. Breakfast,
Right,
you know, it's not.
like, I'm just trying to
Because
see.
there's similar issues that happened with the daily camera building, because that was supposed to have rooftop access and. I don't go to that one much, but,
Can you even get in?
that's the problem.
Could I get in
You-
there? No one's
That was
invited
supposed to
me.
have rooftop access to the public. I don't know what happened, but I know there's a lot of. People upset that there's not rooftop access when there's supposed to be
Yeah,
rooftop
or that
access,
you
and I
can't
don't
see the
know.
Flatirons anymore from the mall,
Well,
or,
that's one conversation at a time, so. There are some, yes, 20 hours a week, it could be. 5 AM to like 10,
Right.
breakfast every day, not like when we're wanting to do dinner, stuff like that.
yeah, it was something that we brought up during negotiations, and I think, we were very open about. What we thought about how that turned out, a particular project, and so. I think we're hopeful that it is much clearer that this is a public space. And we also are building in some discretion, and they have operational discretion on when they have other events that it wouldn't be appropriate for the public to be up there, but I think we capped that at some.
I mean, you can go up there and not buy anything,
That's right.
okay.
And I think with all development agreements, the enforceability is always an issue, and so that's why we thought some time limitations would be, we could kind of review after 5 years and ensure that those benefit provisions are actually manifested.
Well, let's start. Go ahead, Andy.
I was gonna say, I mean, I also think like a few years ago, there was more of a deficit of rooftop access, now, I mean, you have Avante, Rosetta.
Yeah, but they're closed, the rooftops closed, like, it's like open like 4 months out of the year, and which is strange to me, I'm like, I'll bring the dishes down if we want, like. But it seems we have a really nice day in like March, and it's like, they don't wanna stop it, and then, I don't know, I find it kind of hard to believe that. Someone's gonna let me sit on this rooftop and not buy anything without being like, excuse me, this is for patrons. But I'll just have to pull out this. document and show them.
Maybe starting at the beginning, BRC 283 does talk about the formal competitive bidding process.
Yes.
And that kind of, for things in excess of $100,000, there's a competitive bidding. And I just wanted to kind of go back to the beginning part of that, just to make sure our statutes of cities were properly followed. So I understand getting best values and having covenants, but we can also put covenants on any deal we go through. So I just wanted to maybe start at the big bidding part of that,
Yeah,
to understand our city statutes.
it's fair. We have discretion. I think generally we always try to do competitive bidding whenever there's a chance. In this case, the city is not buying something, we're not procuring it. We are selling. And so our responsibility is to weigh that, whether or not it is appropriate for a competitive bid process. Or if, we are jeoparding the public value, in the right way. And so we felt like, in this case, we legally have the discretion, and B, that the opportunity itself was such that we were able to get to a place where there was adequate community benefit to justify a closed process. We certainly could have taken a different approach, but again, it was not on our radar from a staff perspective, and on our work plan or anything of that nature. So it would have been years out if we considered something like that on our own. So that opportunity cost was a consideration as well.
And then, I bought commercial properties, and so I do actually like reading through these to a degree. And so the buyback approach basically says if this deal falls through, the city can buy it back. But that the city pays for all attorney's fees, all due diligence costs, all architecture and engineering fees, interest, loan fees, in that. And so for the amount that they have to put down, 100K, as I recall, less all those fees, we might end up paying more to get it back than their earnest money.
Sure. What I would say to that is, the way we structured it was, to not have the sale agreement kind of fully executed, or not have, I should say, the transfer of property fully executed until they are through the entitlement process and until the development process. We would hope that would start in earnest right away if this sale agreement goes through. And then, once upon receiving kind of final approvals, then kind of off and running. I think, and Ryan, feel free to speak to this. I think once they're at that point, I would hope they're feeling committed to the project. They're having to put a lot of time and real resources in to get all the way through our site review process. And so,
but in a way that's soft costs, because we'd end up paying for any hard costs. So it's their time that they don't get necessarily reimbursed.
Well,
for,
I
but
think they would be investing in, architecture, detail.
But we would pay for that.
No, that's on their time. It was their.
My reading was that we pay for attorney's fees, due diligence cost, architecture and engineering fees, even interest and loan fees.
I think that's on, and I'd have to look specifically, I think that's on in the event of the buyback.
Yeah.
So that would be if they've gotten through all the entitlements, and then something happens and they're no longer going to move forward with the project. There's some risk there, but I would be hopeful that if they're going to carry it through that entire process, that they've lined up financing and have full attention and move forward with the project.
What would the construction timeline be, and how will people access downtown, since that's I think one of two ways they can get my stuff.
Yeah, I would just again have to yield to our partners to talk about what their timing would be. I think in a best case scenario with our development review process, you're likely looking at, no dirt turning until well into next year. In terms of the access, as a part of the development review process, we do looking at things like that to ensure that, for instance, Spruce is kept open, at least the lane is kept open. There would be some impact, but we've been able to navigate that with everything that you developments to them.
Maybe just because this is all new for all of us, like this is new stuff that we all do a lot of, but I just want to work on that buyback thing a little bit more, because 2008 happened again, and interest rates go up and up and up, and et cetera, and it just doesn't make financial sense. And so they can go through so far in the process and be like, they can almost force our hand to buy back at that point.
So just if you don't mind me interjecting, so they buy it from agent for $5.8 million. Something happens, they get entitlements. they end up not going to construction. Okay, we're going to keep it as a parking lot. We are going to buy it back from them. They paid us a certain amount. Yes, they've invested in some plans for the space that can follow the space, that is still real value in that. So they're creating value in plans for the space. This happens on residential properties as well, where folks, their spec plan, they don't actually go to construction, but it's ready, it's not all through entitlements, there's value in it. So just allowing them an opportunity to realize the value in the things that they did, after they already sold it to us for $5.8 million. Right?
This is where I just don't understand all of this stuff 100%, and so I don't know if they think we buy it back, like, really, we're trading back and forth $100,000, not 5.8 million.
Well, hopefully it's not something that we.
Yeah, if they don't fit through it, the entire process.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. And we can follow up and I can go back to our attorneys and just get a little bit more information explained. How that would work.
And then just little, like, again, nuances, like, if you really look at the dates and stuff on some of the crap. The buyout contract, happens on day one on year 5, so it's really at the end of the 4th year. And the developers will have 3 years to fully implement all that thing, so that public amenities, those public benefits could really only happen for, in essence, 1 year, because it could take that long. So when we've got like these X number of years for all the benefits for us to happen, if I'm reading the timeline math right, between the buying, the building, and all this stuff, we might only actually get 1 year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think with some of the timing aspects of it, at least in my mind, we're more related to the affordable commercial piece of that, because you have to, once it's all built out, you have to find a tenant and all that kind of stuff. I think on some of the others, like building the rooftops so that there's access, procuring art as they're building out the space, that, I mean, those will come through as they're building, the commitments to the construction and energy components, those will all come through early. I think we're just trying to provide some type of timeline within the document on, what happens if we're not able to secure, if they're not able to secure an affordable commercial tenant. What if there is some problem with public art on the site that will have some revenue to try to do that.
One question I just don't understand this part of it. The environmental practices. Solar infrastructure ready to offset 5% of the projected annual energy use. So the energy performance has to be 10% better than code, but their energy offset only has to be 5%. If I'm reading this correctly.
Yep.
And so they're still using 95% non-renewables. How does that sit with the city's net zero, blah, blah, blah?
It's a good question. You're stepping slightly out of my area, at least off the top of my head. If I remember correctly, how I arrived at that is there already is some type of minimum on-site renewable energy in our energy code. So there's already some type of requirement. Can't remember off the top of my head. It's 5%, it's less than 5%. The intent of that 10% overall was to say that the entire project must outperform our energy code requirement. So we have to double check that.
Yeah, because in a way I'm kind of mixing two metaphors. There's one that it has to be really more than 10% of the energy use.
Yeah.
And they have to use 5%. So,
Yeah, and I
or
think
offsets of some sort.
right, and I think the on-site offset is like, it's a component of the big umbrella of the big picture, so theoretically, like if they were at 15% on-site energy generation through some mechanism, that would contribute to the 10%.
So they do both work together, like the 10% over plus the energy.
Yeah.
Generation. Because in a way, I'm just pointing out things I'm seeing. I'm not necessarily having judgment calls on these things. I'm just like, doing the math on all this. I'll keep going, but I also.
And you've got maybe some public comment on.
The required amenities for that public for the portable place.
Mhm.
It didn't really get into the details of it's like. Cement floor, cement room, no HVAC, no energy, no electrical, no power, versus like, what's considered a warm shell. And it says 2,000 square feet, but it also doesn't say like, does that mean one place gets it for 2,000 square feet, or we can have. Just for easy math, 500 square feet places or something like that. Can you comment on those two, the warm shell versus the hard shell
Yeah,
and breakup of the space?
and I don't, correct me if I mischaracterize this, I think on the site itself. There's not gonna be a huge amount of commercial square footage on the first floor. Whether or not there's kind of multiple suites, if you will, on the first floor, that will be up to the developers, but. I think, the easiest way to imagine this is that you have one. Maybe larger restaurant component that is in 30,000 square feet on the first floor. And you find a, local, tenant that is coming at, 30% under market rate.
Great.
We've accomplished that, you need the benefit. If it doesn't fit that easily, then it's gotta fit somewhere on the side.
So it isn't like one dedicated space that was there, kind of like the same thing, like they could end up having the restaurant be. It at unreduced rate versus like, we've got this office over here that's 2,000 square feet and.
That's right. In Boulder Junction, it's a retail space that was sort of was. So it will be kind of up to them programmatically what works, but if we could be a variety of different things.
And Mark, it is early in the process, we have to show where that goes, and you guys have during the entitlement review it, or whatever it is, it might be development planning commission. You get to look at that, so if we just put it in the back of the building with no windows, you guys can say, what, that was not the intent here. So there's, I know that was big, and we have to show you the plan.
And again, I'm just asking a question. I'm
Yeah,
not trying
no,
to be-
I mean, it took us a
Like you
year
go
and a half to
contract
figure it out.
because it's like the intent, like we all look. Getting in bed, and go, yeah, and then like, there's what the contract actually said.
Yeah.
Do they have first, do you guys have first right of refusal, or who wants to go in? You get to pick the tenant, or?
Do we get to pick the tenant? We do, we need to curate the appropriate group that goes in there. I think we really focused on the commerce driven. I know there are different iterations, but we wanted to make sure it was someone engaged in the selling of goods and services or providing goods and services versus just a nonprofit education office. Like, it just wouldn't really necessarily fit. Maybe it ends up going that way, but we really want to focus on commerce. But yeah, we currently have the curatorial rights, but I believe it has to fit in certain, local, this, that, and then kind of it's different requirements there.
Mark, one of the benefits that I know that also happened for those with potential with the EDA. Can you just address that? Because that wasn't really brought up in the benefits, and just so that's on the subsidy.
Yeah, it'll depend on the timing of the DDA. I think if the base year. If the base year for the property tax with the DDA is 2027, very likely then that this project would create new investment increments of if revenue for the DDA for the project. So I, don't have the kind of numbers off the top of my head, but it would not be insignificant. If the base year is 28 or 29, when the development comes online, I'm sure then it would be absorbed in the base and not be the part of increment for TIF. So
When does that get decided with the EDA? Is it when it passes this year versus another year kind of thing, or is it?
it will depend on when council approves the time of development and the board forms and all that good stuff, on a timeline. If everything goes according to plan, the base year would be 2027.
That's what we can
Yeah.
assume.
The summer 2026 and 2027.
And just for property tax.
So the way we sneak this in, this helps the DDA, it's kind of this. But if the DDA doesn't get approved this year, and we do it again next year, or whatever. I mean, it's a nice benefit. Could be, yes. Do the commissioners have any other questions? Because I will then let you please public comment, if there's no others.
Commissioner comment question? It's down to now. Lisa, do we have any public here for comment?
It does look like we have a few folks online. If those who'd like to speak would raise their hands.
Say it one more time, this is time for public comment, if someone would like to comment, this is time, maybe, no one's raising their hand, so we can move on. Then, Mark, it sounds like you have a motion for us to consider. I don't think I have that in my act, actually. I have to say. PowerPoint it bigger. I'll just. Participant. I guess Cal, you want to read it?
Move that the Downtown Management Commission recommend the city council.
It's not that good.
Alright. I move that the Downtown Management Commission recommend to the city council, acting as the board of directors for Cajun, the authorization of the city manager acting as the general manager of Cajun to execute a sale agreement and all associated documents for Cajun upon real property. Should that be real estate? It's just real property located at 2121 Broadway.
Does anyone have any, just because, does anyone have any considerations? Short, he was reading it just before we moved to that. Does anyone have any certain thoughts now that we know what we're saying? Second on that motion. Well, before we're doing that, he just read it because I couldn't even read it.
Well, motion be the same.
Oh, okay. We have a motion, a second. Okay, now we can discuss. Thank you. Does anyone have any concerns about that wording? See, did last time, so if not, we can do votes. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None? No. We share that too. Okay. Consideration of third matter from staff. Consideration of a motion to recommend the city council advance some ballot measures related to the formation of the DDA qualifying electors 6.
That's for law.
Yes, Randy, while you pull that up, just, you see this more formally on your agenda tonight, we've been providing updates on this. This is the last DMC meetings before council considers whether or not to place the DDA on the ballot. We are seeking a formal recommendation one way or another on whether or not to place those ballot measures on the ballot in November. So we're gonna see a couple things. We're gonna go through an update on where we're at, some of the most recent work. And then see if you all have a recommendation for that.
Is there anything, we have talked about this a lot. Is there anything new, different, or just it's kind of your time, your repetition, and keeping the schedule, what do you need to tell us, or can we just move to a motion, because it's nothing new.
I appreciate that. I'm happy to fly through the beginning. We're already familiar with the background and some of the data on why we're doing this. What is new is the letter of intent, which will eventually lead to an intergovernmental agreement that would be negotiated between council and the future DDA board. So I would like to just cover that briefly. But aside from that, yes, we can fly right through for the motion. So I don't have to talk about what is a DDA, why we're considering it. Boundary, I know you're all familiar with that. This is just some of the data. I'm not sure that I've shown this in any TMC meetings recently, so we got it quite recently from Puma. But it just shows inflation adjusted sales tax and property tax revenues on the next slide in the page. And it just shows really in summary that it hasn't recovered since the pandemic. Similar stories to Puget, except for 2025, we do see some recovery, and we can really attribute that to some investments in such as the Moxie. And then this slide is just
That was for the library.
yes, it was. This slide is at the library number 2. Just kind of showing how our important districts are major contributors to the city's general fund. And when these districts struggle, they impact citywide services. So that's what this slide is really. And development, I've gone through this before. This is an overview of what that is. It's related to the investment framework. These are the 5 investment priorities that were identified through the process. So I think I've shown these before. I'll just really do unless anyone has questions. How would the DDA be funded? We've talked about this. It would be TIP, no levies, and that's fine. Strategic rate is then the existing assets, off-street assets, but so this is really about how we're making sure the city and the DDA are aligned. We are submitting this to council in their meeting packet this week, but this is really about setting expectations before the election. Because the DDA doesn't exist yet, the city can't negotiate a formal intergovernmental agreement with it. There's no DDA board to negotiate with. So we're calling it a letter of intent, and LOI. It really serves as a non-binding framework. Apologies, it is a little small. That outlines the city's intent for the partnership with the DDA. So it addresses several topics: the organizational transition, how TIF revenue sharing would be coordinated so if the DDA is successful, how it would share that growth. The transition of the parking assets with continued alignment with the city parking policies, and just kind of ongoing city oversight and accountability. Another topic at the bottom here that's outlined in the LOI is around initial board appointments, in which recommendations would be made by the planning group for the initial board. City council would then appoint. And there's a real emphasis on geographic representation, so that downtown, are both represented as this organization is established. So that's the last bullet point there. So in terms of timeline, we're sending this to council this week. It's in the planning groups, and I know you all have representation on that group, so their reviews and we're going to be discussing this week. Happy to send you all the council packet once that's live. That's in there, so you can take a look at that. It's a draft LOI. So this is just election overview, really states that the city and our consultant team, so Puma, cannot advocate for or against the ballot measure if this gets put on the ballot. And then it just tells you a little bit about how successful DDA campaigns have been led. What history shows is really through planning, coordinating committee, organizing volunteers, door knocking campaigns, really active. So this is about who votes. It's different from a normal election. Eligible electors are people registered to vote in Colorado who own property, lease property, or bid within the proposed boundaries. Residents who are registered voters get a ballot automatically, but entities, so businesses, LLCs that own property, have to submit a form designating a registered voter to cast their vote and have to request a ballot. So that's just some extra stuff that I wanted you all to be aware of.
Is there one vote per residence or one vote per own building?
Yeah, it's one vote per resident, one vote per property owner, and one vote per business owner. And an LLC owns multiple properties and designate. That might suggest that.
Yeah, so if you were one business and 5 properties, you have one vote. If you had 5 different LLCs that own 5 different properties, you could designate 5 different electors for that.
If you have 2 people who own one residence, one person would vote.
Wait,
That,
Right.
yes. Well, both, if your residents, both residents would receive your individual ballots and have the 5.
That was a.
if one person owns, if one person has multiple LLCs or S corps or something, they get one vote and one per entity that they don't.
Thank you.
But that one, they have to submit a voter per entity. So if I own 5 different LLCs, I don't put 5 votes.
You have to sell it to
I
someone.
have to sub it to someone else, yes.
And further, I think this came up in one of our board meetings, but they do have to, the voter has to reside in Colorado. Like, I know that there's been some misinformation about people living elsewhere and casting votes in favor or against, but I think that's kind of important as well.
So to be a registered Colorado.
Yes.
So property owners who live out of, this will come up, I'm trying to explain this to her. So. Yeah, so, out of state owners who spend a small amount of time in the property here are not eligible to vote.
Not directly, but they can designate someone to them on their behalf.
So if their unit is only occupied like a month a year, it's not rented out, they don't have a vote about this.
That's a
You could
residential property. Is that not the same as commercial?
Yeah,
She's
she could
referring
ask
to
this
this.
on Thursday.
I think from a hierarchy standpoint, the very first box you have to check is whether or not you're registered to vote in Colorado. So if you're not registered to vote in Colorado, you don't get a vote. So for those property owners who live there once a month, they're more than likely, I don't know exactly what signifies it, you get to be a resident. So your residency is determined on how long you actually live in the state,
Not the ownership.
not the ownership.
We can double check that.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
property owner would get the vote.
Okay, well, let me know, let's not talk about this on Thursday.
We'll clarify.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just kind of recap for just a second, just to get this question right? There are multiple ways to vote. One, anybody that lives in the DDA gets a vote as a human being. So just think of it. Only a human can only vote one time. That is why they own multiple businesses. They would refer their ballot to perhaps somebody on their team or their executive team. Correct. And then as a business, because that's the LLC, and then anybody that is a business that has a lease, have to have a lease, they get votes. Then the only open question really is, what happens if you own a residential condo building or a condo that you live on state, can you have something else vote?
Yeah, we'll double check that.
Just want to make sure I am interested in it.
I'm pretty sure that the property owner. We'll double check.
Yeah,
If they're in Colorado.
if they're registered as a voter in Colorado, so if they're a property owner, but they're not registered to vote in Colorado.
Yeah, I should say the ability doesn't.
To
Take that
designate
because
to
you're-
a Colorado.
And I think in either case, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if you're a business owner or let's say you have to still designate who's
Yes.
voting. You can designate yourself if you're a Colorado registered voter, but you designate someone.
As long as we're taking the side track here, the marketing campaign, if you wanted to go back to that slide of door knocking, crap like that. Has that started or is there, who's organized? Is that organized or is that all just like everyone doing on their own?
We cannot without one.
Yeah, I would say that the effort's underway to work with those that have the ability to vote, of course, and support it. Will come. We have done a fair amount of outreach with public meetings and we are keeping track of those that are, supportive, so counting votes and somewhat that way, but the next and most important step is really just to get this on the ballot. So all we have to do is making sure that our council has a good understanding as the resources that we need and analysis we need to vote to refer to that. As soon as that happens, there will be a very wide community effort underway with the electors in the DDA to help them prepare to vote. I'm gonna jump to the suggested motion language. Yeah, then I mean, the next step, like we mentioned, is also will consider ballot measures on August 6th, so. It's important for this commission to consider formal recommendation. Special motion.
That was good for.
Going to motion to recommend that city council adopt an ordinance submitting to the qualified electors of the proposed district ballot measures necessary to establish the Boulder Downtown Development Authority and authorize its financing.
Right here, second.
Second.
We discuss this, anyone? Can we move the voting? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Opposed? None? Yay.
Yay.
Good. Well, thank you for how much information provided to us. I think it was really well organized and well communicated, and I know how much work that was. So I personally really appreciate how hard you worked on that. Thank you all. That's why I was making eye contact.
We had, while the official agenda goes on the commissioners, I believe we have the Boulder East, Creek Park East Bookend Development Partnership that got added to our agenda.
Yeah, I'm happy to just speak briefly to this. I know that we included some presentation. So this is the block that's just east of the recent Boulder Creek Park. Which.
What did it used to?
Central Park, Senate area, that's part of the reason for a new day. Simple sometimes is the best. So this is the block for the board to wrap up, that we are seeking to redevelop. It's mostly city-owned property. There are some other private parcels on the block as well. What we have done is already issued a request for interest and received feedback from the development community as to what might be possible on the site. We did that process, received a bunch of feedback, and based off of that, we have developed some goals for parameters, if you will, for a request for proposals, which would be our formal process to find a development partner or partners that would redevelop the site based on our goals. So there's a few things that we learned that some of our key goals are feasible, which is great, that having permanent year-round or farmers market on the site in some format is the priority that will continue forward. We do have a memorandum of understanding in place with the London Market to have some joint goals in place. And make sure that they are participating with us as partners in the proposals. And so that was an important step in we also know that arts and culture, some type of anchor on the site, is important. And we heard that reflected in the proposals that came in, interest information that came in. That also is of interest in some way. Also to activate the park space itself, so just think out. So employees move up the block a bit, and so how do we think ahead to make sure that the investments space are positive? And then we saw a mix of proposals that shouldn't say proposals, but a mix of concepts that ranged from housing on the site to hospitality, arts and culture, and market in some way. How those were oriented on the site were a little different. But the good news is that there was strong interest from the market and on both the east bookend and west bookend, which is on the other side of the Pacific area as well. So what our plan is to issue a request for proposals that sets those parameters and like some of those goals. Staying open in terms of like the exact financial structure, on the exact uses, but really focusing on those kind of goals. The east bookend, west bookend will be an option. It will not be a requirement of the RFP. And we'll be off and running from there. So city council will review those general parameters of the RFP most likely on August 13th, and then we'll issue shortly after that. Goal of having a partner in place by the end of the year. If everything goes correctly, we'll be through our concept review in 2027. Our second 2028, we're breaking the ground either in 28 or early. That is our story.
Quick questions. Does the DMC, is the parking over there itself in the portfolio of the DMC?
It's not, it's just those are general fund, but the block is within the boundaries. So what they were thinking about is depending on DEA conversation and whatnot, there may be some public role in developing parking on the site. We'll see what the market says. Partners can come in and say, we'll develop parking, cities parking standards, and we want to manage it on our own. That could be a possibility. They could also come in and say, are not required to build parking, and so therefore.
There's parking across the street.
Yep, and so we'll need to consider, I mean, there's a loss of about 101. So these slots. So we'll need to think about that. I think the contrast to the previous conversation, there is an interest in making sure that our civic area, Boulder Creek Park, is accessible and people can have space. There could also be events, hospitality types of uses on the site. So it depends on that city, but there could be a role.
Is the type of deal that would be made through this RFP such that it would also increase the tip on the DPA? Yes. So, okay.
And the second question, how tall are you imagining that the buildings would be, if it's residential or hospitality? Is there a height limit?
Still subject to the city's height limits. I will depend on kind of the type of use that is proposed. It is allowable within the zoning, correct? That would be go up to 5-story with the.
That was 55 feet because the Capstart building right across the street from there was going to have that building that was 55 feet, which was above they had to get a special variance and then knocked out.
3 and daily.
But it's also changed.
I will double check that. I think there is some flexibility with the street, but I don't know off the top.
And they can get variances.
That's right, and my hunch is that we'll see proposals that have a range of heights up to but I don't know for sure.
And are there issues of taking that?
Most likely, and it's something we work through, probably both through the RFP process and then also through our development.
I thought views weren't protected. I thought views were not protected. You don't have, just because you had a view doesn't. But there is maybe shadow issues.
Right, yeah, there are some systems that I don't. But it's something that we do not want a five-story block, across the board, right? It would have to be designed well, all that stuff, so. I think the good news about the city, in this case, controlling the procurement process is that we'll want the right partner, the right project, so. Internally,
Hopefully there'll be a lot of conversations.
yeah, and so after we have a partner, which
Which
will,
are others.
yes, it will still be conceptual once we have a partner in place, but then there will be a year process where that partner will, with us, with the city, working with exactly like what things show where, how the program. So there's still some process to build.
So everybody's can't have that.
Yeah,
then response to predominantly Colorado.
State. There was some out of state, but there was also good, local Colorado. So a mix of folks that have done successful development, people that don't have done successful development in Colorado, that Boulder, that's an out of state.
One thing I do know is those lots are heavily rented by local businesses. We just get on them as well. So there'll be parking issues.
And farmers market access is fine. That's something they're concerned about. Sure, but sort of they're low in, low out, especially since you're around.
Anything more on this? Is there, looks like there's one more topic in the packet staff of special events update to Boulder revised code. Use festival permit.
Yeah, it was a
Discuss that.
FYI, mostly, there are some proposed code updates, related to special events, large special events. Like Sundance, and, essentially, what this will do is allow for some activations that traditionally happen during the festival. And to try to put some parameters around that. For instance, I have sponsorships that are typically done would have signage that would not be allowable, sign code. That in having other activity, et cetera, that would be allowed under current.
In general, this is more permissive.
Right. Instead of geographical.
Some parameters are about more permissive. So, do we have any questions to direct them to Carl? City council's scheduled to consider this in 2 weeks. So, more of that, why I said yes. Nope.
No, there.
Next week, 2. Oh, that's yep. It is very much an FYI. It's very much an FYI because it's a done.
Don't email it.
Commissioners. We did have one thing on the matters from commissioners of verification on who maintains various areas of the city. I know you and I talked about Mark during the agenda setting thing.
Yeah, we can follow up a little bit more specifically. We do have some information that we've developed in the last year or so that clarify who's responsible for what in certain areas. There are some one-offs that are always hard to figure out who is responsible. But in terms of general responsibilities that right away, general responsibilities for tree wells on the wall, off the wall, maybe that's it.
Cool. Do you want to put that in the packet next time, or
Yeah,
how do you want to
we're
communicate that? Yeah, just because I think there was some confusion as to like who does what, some gray areas, Venn diagram of that. So that was one area that. The city, UPP, property owners.
Like the Wells Fargo,
Yes.
Oh, like, yeah, because there was
Yeah,
that
they were
little
like,
area.
we're not
doing it. It was private.
But also just public property, like the mall, like who does the city do stuff, will the UPP do it? That was kind of, I think, maybe.
The city house. Owners.
Right, and in many of those cases, the city's not responsible for the actual plantings or streets, so, yes, that's a whole thing.
Were there any of the matters from commissioners?
Good job staying on time.
I'm getting practice at this.
Yielded.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Almost to do it.
Do I hear a second? Okay.
Motion.
No, we learned you can't.